and I'm tired of it, mate.
Well, I mean, it is a crawler, and I know now why you always wear those dark glasses. I reckon
My eyes are like this.
I'll be needing them soon. Look at mine.
They're like keyholes in the snow. Right, well, here we are. This is Horseshoe Lake in Lechlade, Gloucestershire. And this lake belongs to the Carp Society. It's got 2 or 3 species that we're looking for in the challenge. And we're not only in a race against time at the moment, we're also in a race against the weather because the forecast is absolutely awful. So we want to get set up and fishing as quickly as we can. We've come here primarily with tench in mind, but there's also bream, roach and rudd in this lake. And of course I think it's most famous for carp. Now this is a big lake and we're fishing quite a comfortable distance actually, about 40 to 50 metres out, and believe me, I've fished a lot further out. And what we're doing is using this device to get the bait out. Now this is called a spod. What it is it's a bait rocket and you fill it with bait. Centrifugal force holds the bait in during the cast, and when it hits the water it literally turns upside down and deposits the bait underneath. So by using the float as a target, I can bait right on the float and try and create a patch of bait out there that will not only pull the fish in but also keep them there when they arrive. That's the theory. So very simply, you've got to fill the spod up. Then when the spod's full, just to give it a bit more weight and to stabilise it during flight, I just dip it in the water and then you bring it nicely overhead and fire. And it drops down right next to the float. Now you might be wondering, how can I keep hitting the spot every time? Well, the answer is that I'm using the line clip on my reel to control the distance. So the float is the target, but once I've got a cast on the money, if I clip behind the line clip on the spool, all I've got to worry about is direction. I haven't got to worry about distance, so it's possible with this stuff to be really, really accurate. So what sort of bait are we going to put out? Well, primarily we're after tench and bream. We've already caught some carp, so I'm not too worried about those, although there are some very big carp here in Horseshoe Lake. But we've got a beautiful assortment of baits. We've got maggots, pellets, hemp and maize, loads of tins of sweet corn, and we've even got worms as well. So we've got an absolute banquet for these tench. And I'm going to spend probably the next hour or so spotting bait out, get a big bed of bait out there. We're going to sit on that and we're going to hope that the fish will come in. And if they do, we should get some fireworks. Getting the spot out to the float should be effortless. It shouldn't require a huge marathon effort. And certainly when you're spotting, it helps if you can get into a nice rhythm of casting. You want to be adopting the same stance, casting from the same place. Try and keep everything as smooth as possible. And it's something that you need to practice. I've seen people fishing with these things the first time, and they do find it difficult, and then they give up. But the fact of the matter is, there is no substitute for practice.
Well, I've been a bit crafty here because I've told Matt I'm not very good at spotting, so I've let him get on with it, and he's a lot younger than me anyway, and it's quite a hard job actually, spotting all that bait out. So what about my tactics? Well, obviously I can't ignore that huge patch of bait that Matt's put out there. I'm going to put one of my rods on that, but the other one I'm going to fish in the margin because that's a prime patrol area for tench. At night I'm going to ledger my baits, but in the daytime I'll do something a bit different and I'll float fish my baits. And tench can be quite finicky biters at times, and it just might be that we need the float to register those very sensitive bites they can sometimes give.
Blimey, I've only been fishing for about 5 minutes. I've had a take on the maggot feeder. It's not very big, but hey, the way things have been going, anything's a bonus. Oh, now, this looks... Mick, I think this could be a rudd. It is a rudd. It is a rudd.
We need a rudd.
That is one of our target species. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful example of the species. It's got these brassy golden flanks. It looks a little bit like a roach. If anything, it's slightly deeper bodied. It's got blood red fins, dorsal set well back, and of course the key distinguishing feature of the roach from the rudd is this upward slanting mouth. Well, let's put this one back in, Mick.
Yeah.
Where there's one, I'm sure there are others.
Yeah.
And, well, what a lovely fish, like a little dinner plate, isn't he? Off you go. Now, if you've never fished a huge lake like Horseshoe before, of course, it can be a little bit daunting. This is a gravel pit. It was dug quite a few years ago to provide gravel for the nearby motorway network. And in fact, these waters are very clear in the main, but with prolific weed growth. And one of the things you've got to do if you're going to fish here is, first of all, find out where the fish are. And then secondly, when you've done that, you've actually got to decide where in the swim you're going to fish. And that is all about finding the clear areas among the weed. So a piece of kit like this one is absolutely vital. Now, this is what we call a marker rod setup. We've got here a rod and reel. The rod's 12 foot long. It's got a nice sensitive tip, and it's also got a depth scale on it so that when you're actually plumbing the depth, you can use this scale. I've got a reel loaded with braided line, which is great for providing me with the sensitivity I require. This particular piece of end kit basically performs three functions. First of all, when I drag this special lead across the bottom, it helps me to feel where the clear patches are. If I pull it into weed, it jams up, but when it goes across gravel, it bumps across the gravel, the clean areas, and it sends vibrations up the braided line. The second function it performs is to be able to plumb the depth, because by letting off line gradually, the float will rise to the surface. So you can wind it down to the lead and then let it rise up to the top. And to do that, you just pay off a foot of line at a time, counting as you go, 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet. And that's why we've got a depth scale on the rod. And finally, having found a clear area, having established the depth, this then becomes a target. We're not casting into the weed, the banquet has been laid, and theoretically at least, the fish should move in on it. That's not a rudd, surely. Oh, it is, you know, maybe. Or is it a tench?
Do you think it's a tench, man?
It doesn't feel like a tench, Mick. It's not fighting like a tench.
It's sort of hanging there, like
yeah,
a bream.
Yeah, like
maybe.
A big rudd or a bream or
weed.
It could be a piece of weed by now, but there was definitely a fish there.
Hang on, it's a fish and it's in the weed and it looks like a tench to me.
It does look like a tench to me.
I've got the net ready. Yeah, it's a tench. We've got one.
I can hardly believe it, Mick. It really hardly fought at all. But we've got one.
As long as we've caught one.
Mick, that's a good tench. Look at it. The great thing about the tench is, look at its tail. You could literally paint the ceiling with it, couldn't you? And it's got very rounded fins. Many people believe this is the most stunning looking of all the coarse fish. This is a female fish. It's got quite small fins, very deep-bodied, and they are superbly muscular. You can see by the thickness of the tail how strong they can be. And believe me, a fish like this could put up a hell of a scrap if it hadn't been blindfolded by that weed. But bearing in mind, Mick, the difficulties we've had so far on the race, we'll take the soft ones, boy. We'll take the soft ones. You know, this is where we play catch-up, I think. We're getting a good run of luck here at Horseshoe. And this one feels like it could be another rudd or a roach. It's not especially big. Here it comes, Mick. Oh, it's in a bit of a tangle with the other line, actually, which is a danger when you're using two rods, so I'll have to reach down. But let me tell you, this is a big roach. Now, I'm pretty sure that if I did a lateral line count, probably find that there are 45 scales along this fish. If you look at the lips, you'll notice that the top lip slightly overhangs. It's almost level with the bottom lip. And when I first caught these fish, I thought they might be roach-rudd hybrids, but when I did all the lateral line counts and things, I found out, in fact, that they are true roach. There are various counts and examinations you can do on the number of rays in the fin by looking at the lips, the positioning of the fins. One of the keys to look out for with a roach is the fact that the dorsal and the ventral fin is more or less in line. So my money's on this being a roach. Well, no wonder we call this place the Theatre of Dreams, Mick.
Yeah, we're on to some good fishing here, mate.
Oh, yeah, not half.
It's giving us a good chance to catch up, this is.
It is. We're on a roll, my son. Fish, Mick. Oh, he's just come off.
Oh.
I've lost him, Mick. Look at that. Missed one there, boy. This is madness, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at that. You'd have to go a long way to catch a roach of that quality. Getting knocks on the indicator all the time.
Well, we've got another roach here. I'm now playing another fish in the pouring rain. It's not a huge fish, but they're lovely looking tench.
It's a roach or a rod, Matt? Actually, it's a nice roach, Matt. Look at that.
Well, it's real feast or famine, isn't it, this old rod race? 1 minute we're struggling to catch fish, and then the next minute we can't stop catching them.
Oh, that's another cracker. Let's carry on with the fishing, eh?
This race is gathering momentum now.
Well, they must be coming on the feed again. I've got a nice roach.
And this one's a male tench. A good average size, aren't they? Superb average size. Now, you can tell it's a male tench because the fins here are much bigger than they are on the female fish, and they extend back behind the vent, which is here. Can you also see this pronounced pelvic muscle in this region? That denotes that this is a male fish. So with tench, it's relatively easy to tell the difference between males and females. And this is definitely a Mr. Tench, not a Mrs. Tench.
Well, in this instance, Matt, yours is bigger than mine.
Well, I've heard that said many a time, Brownie.
Yeah. Now, I think the roach were feeding in the swim, but I think the tench might be coming in to muscle them out now.
Yep. It's a bit of a difference, isn't there?
Yeah. OK. I'm putting mine back.
OK, well, I'll slip this one back as well. It's a dreadful afternoon for weather, but at least the fish are feeding.
Well, Matt's getting loads of tench. All I can get is roach and rudd. But slowly I'm working my bait across towards his swim. He doesn't know that. I've got a fish on, and it's gone into a great big pile of weed. And knowing my luck, when it gets to the net, it's going to be all weed and no fish. Tell you what, Matt, we don't need a landing net, we need a wheelbarrow.
Come on, weed ball.
Oh, I've had a tench at last. It's a miserable old looking so-and-so. Look at his face.
He's sticking his lips out.
I mean, here's us remaining cheerful in the rain, and look at him. Mr. Glum, that is. Oh, well. Can only get better now.